Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. We're bringing you the latest and greatest geeky news of the week. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and with me is my wonderful co-host, as always, Courtney Bolin.
Buddy.
And we are joined this week by friend of the podcast and Tales of Jamora Leaf Dancer cast member, Heather Topolski. It looks like, I think there must be some kind of gating going on in Discord, because I didn't get the first part of like either of you speaking, which is funny.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Gotta love this technology, right?
Yeah.
Technology is the bane of my existence right now.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So we have a couple items in quickfire news, and then we're going to talk with Heather a little bit about using tabletop RPGs in an academic setting, or in a school setting, for those that are anathemic to the phrase academic. And then we got some items in quest log this week. So why don't we get started right in the quickfire news?
Yeah.
Nope, that was the wrong one. That was the wrong one, but that's fine. So first up, Animal Crossing has a fall update that you can download today. Doesn't go live until tomorrow, unless you are some sort of mystical Australian living down in the land down under and you have it already. Except not, because the seasons are flipped, so never mind. Maybe in Japan, I think. Japan might have it already. But the fall update is going to bring trick-or-treating, some spooky outfits and reactions, pumpkin patches, and all sorts of spooky-themed furniture that you can build with pumpkins that you can grow in your pumpkin patches.
I'm hearing is Laura Bailey is going to be able to make an even scarier area to creep Travis out with on her island.
A little bit.
Yes, I cannot wait for those pictures.
Courtney.
I was going to say, next up, we got more information yesterday on the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC, the Crown Tundra, that will actually be released coming up pretty soon on October 22nd. The Pokemon Company is also going to be offering a bundle wrapping up Pokemon Sword and Shield with the 2 expansions, so Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra, which will be released on November 6th. No price has been given for that bundle yet, but the Pokemon Company has listed a special purchase bonus of 100 Pokeballs. So if you don't already have it, pick it up on November 6th with everything included.
Our last official bit of quickfire news is the Nintendo 3DS production has officially ended on Nintendo's handheld, last standalone handheld after a 9-year run. This marks, if you want to count the DS to the 3DS as like one giant family system, we're talking close to maybe a 15-year run on that. I'm pretty sure it was something around that. Because prior to that was still the Game Boy line, which ran for,
that's right.
About another 15 years or so. So, Nintendo 3DS, we salute you. Thank you for all your hard work, and you have earned a rest. So, and then this isn't in the notes, but just because there are reports that basically retailers sold more PS5 pre-orders than they have capacity for, and didn't find that out until later. So one of the things, especially Amazon, so for those of you who were looking to get pre-orders, you may or may not be receiving emails that said, like, we're sorry, we had to cancel your pre-order. So yeah, that was being reported, I forget who was reporting it. I think comicbook.com.
I also have one more piece of news too.
Sure.
So we keep getting Smash Brothers amiibos, and on Friday, October 2nd, the Joker amiibo is going to be released. So
Okay.
anybody
that's
that
right.
collects
Also,
amiibos,
at the time of this recording, September 30th, tomorrow they will be announcing a new fighter, a new DLC fighter as well.
Yep.
So that's why IGN's Nintendo Voice Chat podcast moved to Thursday afternoons, because they kept doing this. So,
but yeah, so
All
I just
right.
wanted to let people know, if that amiibo is something you're interested in, that is going to be available. If you can actually find one and get your hands on it.
And then our last bit of impromptu quickfire news is you can finally get the Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden. I forget what it's called, but basically the dice set that has all the extra stuff in it is out. So you can go pick that up. I have also heard from being in Kate Welch's Discord server that apparently the internal name for that adventure was Icy Dicey.
Yeah.
Or it might have been that product. I think it was that product.
Awesome.
It was Icy Dicey.
That's
yes.
awesome.
And all of the graphic design work on that was done by fellow Inc. C-Team member Tristan Falcone, who has been doing a bang-up job on all the graphic design stuff. So,
with that, though, with those being released or being ready for the release, D&D Beyond also has a free digital dice set that look like those, and they're really pretty, and they're blue, and they're sparkly, and they're free to get. So add those to your digital dice collection.
Cool.
If you so choose.
All right.
That's everything I can remember.
Yeah.
Any extra?
Since we are all set with quickfire news, I will play the correct sound effect this time, which is... for our deep dive. So, Courtney, you wanted to head up this.
I did.
We'll call it an interview, although it feels weird to call it an interview.
Call it an interview
with a friend of ours. So.
So Heather, just do you want to just give us a quick introduction about like what you have done already, or what you have done with your students, basically? Because I've heard a little bit about it. You know, you've told me about it as you've been going, but you have, like, this year kind of throws everything off. So say how it was before. Let's talk about the before times first.
Before times, yeah.
Yes.
So in spring of 2019, I'm a local public school music teacher at an elementary school here in the Berkshires, and I was working the after school program, and they were trying to like bring in new content, but it had to be focused on English language arts. And I was like, what can I do to help with that? I'm like, our students need creative outlooks. They need creative writing. They need to use their imaginations, because a lot of the reading that they're doing in school is nonfiction based. So like,
it's no fun.
Yeah. I mean, interesting, but you know, creative writing helps in so many aspects of life, not just with writing stories.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, what could I do? Like, I could start a Dungeons and Dragons club. Let's see if that works. I just started playing with our old group and was having way too much fun. And I'm like, I could bring this to the younger students. I had 14 students in my first group, which was
What were you expecting?
Many.
Yeah. I was not prepared for that. It was fine. I was able to move all of my tables in my classroom and make one like massive big table. And for the first part of our adventure and teaching the students how the game worked, we all sat around the table. It took forever to get through a 45-minute one shot. Like 3 or 4 sessions. And then I ended up splitting the group into 2 smaller groups, and one of the students started to DM, which was great. He wanted to
Nice.
learn how to do it, and I said, I have this perfect, indie RPG that I found that follows D&D's 5e rules, and he took it and went with it. It was Pokemon themed. They went and had a grand old time. My table, we did
Nice.
a goblin themed adventure. It was awesome. And then the following year, or fall of last year, I ran it again, and then had a slightly smaller group, but I had students, instead of create their own characters, they partnered up to create one character, which worked out really well because if someone was absent, a character was not missing. So someone wasn't, knocked unconscious or sick with the flu in the
Oh.
tavern at the tavern and the inn. So
And it wasn't
that was
somebody,
helpful.
and it wasn't a student like taking over for someone and trying to juggle too as well.
Right.
Because I know sometimes we do that as adults, like, oh hey, I'll play for this person for today. Like,
Sometimes it worked out well, like if 2 students were absent, like the same 2 students were absent, because like once sports season started, that's a problem sometimes. So that did leave extra players who weren't controlling a singular character
yep.
by themselves. They could pop in and be that character, which was really interesting, because as the students played their characters developed in their own way, like they do, and the students observing those characters were able to recreate those characters as those characters were being played by their friends, which was
Nice.
really, really interesting to me because they didn't keep the characters their own. They really respected what other students were doing with their characters. So this year I am looking at doing a digital campaign, because I am teaching remotely all year as far as I am aware. There's a very small possibility towards the end of the school year that I will see my students in person, but we will not be having our after school program. So I'm going to have to figure out how to do this digitally, which we've all played digitally here. Those of us in the talking to you right now, we've all played digitally, and it's very different than playing in person.
It is.
It's very different.
It's hard enough for adults to do it sometimes. I'm
Oh,
speaking about
absolutely.
myself.
For me, playing online is not too bad. The majority of my campaigns as of late are with people spread all over the country. So I'm used to playing playing online a little bit more than I think I am in person. And I love that there are so many tools out there that make it a little bit easier. For me as an educator, working with students ages 9 to 11 primarily, for an RPG program, I've got to go through a few extra hoops to get them access to things like character sheets online, or to maps if I want them to be able to navigate minis. So lots of forms and lots of permissions. I'm having to go back through the program, or the I don't want to call it an application process, but the convincing process of administration as to like the reasons why this is a good idea to have in a school in the first place. So before I had mentioned it's really important, for like creative writing and storytelling. When I first started, my students wrote a journal. Like they had to literally take notes about what happened during that session as if they were writing in their journal.
Good. Yes.
Yeah.
As the compulsive note taker, that is always good, because not only does it, help you remember what happens, but it also helps it so that you can know what's going on, and you have to be able to read your own handwriting after.
And that's one of the things that needs, that my students in particular, they need a lot of help with handwriting. They're younger students.
Yep.
there's so much that they're getting thrown at during the day that sometimes, you have to weigh like what's more important today. And sometimes, one day doing a math test is more important than spending time writing. And I mean, vice versa. Sometimes writing one day is more important than taking a math test or doing a math worksheet. But having the ability to give them that little bit of extra practice, but also to give them a chance to use their own voices and to help them express themselves how they would like to express themselves is important.
I like that you bring up expressing themselves, because I know that you have had some students who have really blossomed, let's say, during this experience. And again, because you are working with elementary school students, having them have their voice, kind of having an adult there to say, this is your voice. I want to hear your voice, and help you work through that. Would you, to the best of your ability, would you be able to share a little bit about like some ways that what you have done has helped to empower your students?
So one moment in particular comes to mind when I'm thinking about this, and students being able to use their voice in a way that doesn't make them feel outed or doesn't make them feel like they're going to get in trouble because they may think differently or they may feel differently. My very first session with my first mini campaign with my students, I had one student who was suffering from severe depression, and this student was able to express that depression and get the help that they needed because they finally were in a place where they felt comfortable enough to say something. It wasn't them saying it, it was their character saying it, and they were safe having their character say it. With that moment, the students around them, their fellow party members, were able to help that student out of a really yucky and sad situation. That student had done something that they weren't proud of, and they were just going to stay in a dungeon and not move. But their classmates took the time to talk to them and to make them feel better. And I could see in the room the students wanting to help and wanting to be citizens and friends. And sometimes that sort of social learning is put off to the side. Play is such an important part of education that seems to be forgotten about a lot. And this was play that was really important. Our students growing up, kids growing up, they learn through play. They learn how to share. They learn how to be friends. They learn how to give someone part of that dirt pie. They need that play, and sometimes that is really lost in education these days. So for them to have the opportunity to practice how to help a friend, practice what to say when someone is feeling down, was really important to them. It was important for me to see. And the person that read our grant proposal for this program thought that was important too. And they used it in our grant proposal for the following year.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I've had a couple students who are still really excited about it. I hear from some of my older students who still want to play, and they're very sad that they can't play in person. They were playing over the summer. They were playing after school when they got to middle school. And now they're like, I don't know what to do, and I want to find a way to help them. But I work with the elementary students now, so I'm going to do my best to keep it going with the elementary students. One of my students who's been in all of the RPG programs with me, the first thing he did when he saw me virtually online this year was he said, I have something to show you. And he pulled out 4 new sets of dice and he had to show me each one. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. So It's really just such a great program to help with creative thinking, critical thinking, trying to solve these problems, which may not seem like real world problems, but when you're trying to
being able to teach a kid how to say, learning that healthy coping skill of how to name your feelings, how to talk about, your feelings or a situation that makes you upset. I mean, that's such an important thing, and that's such a skill. Like, I didn't even know that until I really started, therapy. But
or perhaps to bring a more lighthearted example that my wife, before we were married, had to experience was how to get through a door, which is something that Fabled Adventures of Vox Machina were not able to do. She was likewise not able to do, but was able to get where she needed to go. Well, I can get into that story when we get finished talking here, but
yeah. So yeah, no, like being able to creatively think about like, all right, we need to get in this tower. The door is locked, but there's an open window on the 3rd floor and a tree trunk 15 feet away with a branch that goes 8 feet out. What would I need to do to get that extra 7 feet and get through that window?
Oh, man, now you're bringing in the math skills.
Right?
I remember there was a time when we actually did that to get, like, how is the art going on this? There enemies up in the sky.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I still have that card with that math down there somewhere.
That was with a former podcast co-host, Josh York, who then said, "This is too much math. We're not going to worry about it."
Yeah, it just happens. So another thing that, like, because you do work in a school, and so, you're seeing these kids in, the one class that you have with them, and then in the after school program. Have you been able to, like, talk with your fellow teachers? There we go, words, I have them. And like kind of see if this experience of RPGs in the after school program have helped to translate into different skills in their regular classroom?
That's a really good question. I wish I had an answer for that. Unfortunately, my school has had a lot of turnover lately because of various reasons. So while I haven't been able to get a lot of data on that, particularly at my school, I do know of some students who the teachers have said, oh, they seem to just be coming out of their shell a little bit more. They seem more interested in interacting with their peers. They seem more interested in stories and interested in drawing. I had one student who they started to draw all of the characters in the party. And their character was a tabaxi, and they loved it. So they made sure to draw that tabaxi, and they're really good. They're really good. So that is one student that I miss seeing and playing with a lot.
Yeah, but even if it's not relating, you're not able to get that data for direct academic success. Like hearing that these kids are coming out of their shells more, they're engaging more, like that's something that is also extremely important. So I'm really glad to hear that.
It's really a fun experience trying to work with students, and it's helped me in my DMing skills a lot. Not that I've DM a lot. I generally only DM children because they can't tell that I'm faking it like we all do. They just think I'm providing
Adults typically can't either.
Things to know. This is good to know.
Oh yeah.
But
just wave your hand. Rule of cool. Yep,
as
that works.
Anyone who has ever watched Tales of Jamora: The Kraken's Wake can tell you.
Yeah, it's really fun. They love the fact that I'm providing them an experience. I'm providing them an escape. I'm providing them a story. The skills that we do in tabletop RPGs, like RP role play, we use role play in school all the time to teach expectations. Like in our school, we have to teach everything. You teach them how you want them to go to the, like, asked to use the bathroom, how you want them to put their books away, how you want them to line up, how to walk through the halls. You teach them how to interact with each other. So, like, how do you play on the swings at the same time? How do you play basketball? Like, so we're role playing all the time in schools. So this is just a natural extension of that in a more fantastical world where anything is possible. And some of the things that these kids come up with is so fantastic, and it's amazing, and it just makes my heart sing. Like when the one campaign that I did with them required them to go find special cocoa beans to make chocolate chip cookies. And you can bet your bottom dollar that RPG came with a chocolate chip cookie recipe, and I totally brought in chocolate chip cookies for them. But along the, like, what was preventing the cocoa beans from being found were giant crabs. So what they did was they didn't want to kill the crabs, but they trapped one of them, and they ended up killing the other one. And they're like, we're going to bring this up. We're going to cut this up as much as we can. We're going to bring it back so everyone can have crab rangoons. Like, okay.
That is some, like, as a player, like, I know a lot of adult games usually go from, like, okay, yeah, here's the bad thing. Here's the, here's the crabs, and how are we going to get them out of the way? And usually it ends in, okay, we're just gonna destroy them.
Well, so that is for D&D in particular, and for games that are either based on war games or based heavily on D&D. I mean, that's kind of the go-to, just because of the system's history as starting out as a war game. So a lot of it focuses on the combat. There are other games that focus much less heavily on combat, and it might not even appear at all.
Like, for example, when we did the Adventures in Oz one-shot that I DM'd, that didn't have any combat. It was much more, it was entirely RP. But I like hearing about the creative solutions that they're coming up with, and creative, peaceful-ish solutions that they're coming up with.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The majority of students, they love rolling dice. They just want to roll dice. So I will over-exaggerate anything to make them roll a die. If they can roll a d20 and try and get something to happen, they love that. And the thing I like about working with children is you've got these base systems that you use. My experience with kids has been 5e so far. I'm exploring the idea of using quests coming up, because I think it'll be a little bit simpler of a system to prepare online, because the quest character sheet I can make into a worksheet in Google Slides, and that is way easier to fill out online than a
even a printable 5e sheet. Oh yeah,
right.
Well, there's no numbers in Quest.
Yeah. Right. So, like, being able to just roll that die, and I'll have them roll over and over and over again until until I can see in their faces they get what they want. Is there some disappointment? Sometimes. Yeah. Like, oh, I couldn't unlock that chest. Oh, I dug through all this bush, and there was nothing in this bush for me to have. But, Sally over here, her character found, a fancy bow and arrow. Like, sometimes that happens, but I'm always like, it's okay. It's part of the adventure. You've got to find what you're going to find. And I don't tell them this directly, but I always make sure that there's something positive for everybody. So everyone gets a magic item of some sort or a special item of some sort. Even if I have to fake it. One of my students, he decided, he was a druid. He decided to, he found like a vine hanging from a tree, and he's like, I'm going to cut this off and I'm going to have like rope. And I'm like, actually, out of my head, I'm like, you found a thorn whip. And just like the spell, I gave him a whip that could do the things that the spell could. And he was so happy about that. He was excited because he had something special that he worked to get, and he thought it would be interesting for something else. And it was awesome. So,
have you looked into the concept? So I know it's a thing that like is talked about for D&D, but isn't necessarily included in the Dungeon Master's Guide, like explicitly. But they do talk about like in Quest and other examples of failing forward.
Like if you like don't succeed in something else, like it still progresses the story type thing.
Yeah. So for example, like failing, quote unquote, a check, means not necessarily that you don't make any progress. It's just you might make progress in a different direction. Or
absolutely.
In the context of like if you're searching for something, like you might not find any, like if you're doing an investigation in like some kind of mystery, you might not find any clues for what you're looking for, but you might find something helpful. You know,
yeah.
So,
sorry, I'm just thinking.
I know
of the Mickey Mouse
Dungeon World
meme.
does something like this with like knowing lore. So it's like if you get like a partial success, or which is like a mixed success kind of a thing. It's like you know something interesting, but it's up to you to make it to make it relevant. It's like the storyteller will tell you something interesting, and it's up to the player to interpret and figure out how to make that piece of lore relevant to the situation at hand.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that a little bit. Not too much because my students are on the younger side. So sometimes piecing together logic like that it's just not there yet. But I'll do that in more visible ways, like, you know, investigate this bush, and if you get high enough score, you'll see the claw marks of an animal that's nearby that might be dangerous. But if they don't get high enough, maybe they'll catch like a piece of fur on a branch or something like that. So while it might not follow the exact story, they may not know what it is. They just know something's nearby, that sort of thing. Yeah, I'll throw them those hints and clues because you still want them to be successful. Part of feeling welcome and feeling part of something is feeling like you're part of the solution. And if there's no success, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to feel like they're helping their group, and that defeats the purpose. So for every failure that a student might have, like a failed dice roll, I always try and counter it with their next roll, regardless of what it is, unless it's a natural one, something positive happening. Because I still have to teach consequences. Like there are consequences for everything. And sometimes, you know, a natural one's going to have a consequence.
And that's why I think things, I've seen adaptations for D&D, but stuff like Quest and Dungeon World have like that sliding scale of different values. Quest, I think, does it pretty well. Dungeon World has a little bit of a narrower range. But that, like, more often you will get your intended result, but sometimes there might be a cost, or, you know, if it's bad enough, there may just be costs. And like you as the player, you get to pick So it might be, you can get struck. Like, so if you're, say, trying to tumble past the ogre in order to get to the treasure chest, and you don't roll high enough, you might get struck by the ogre's club, or he might grab onto your backpack and steal your backpack full of stuff. The choice is up to you. And then, it gives... I could even, at like an elementary school level, see that being an interesting choice, and especially an empowering one, giving that decision-making back to players.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So many aspects of school these days are just, there's so many things that students are required to learn, whether teachers are requiring it, districts or the state and federal level are requiring these things. There's a lot of pressure on students these days, and giving them the choice is that autonomy in their own learning, in their own life, is really important. So yeah, that's why I love doing, my favorite part of this, I think, has always been character creation. The first time I let the students basically have free reign of all of the 5e characters or races and classes in the player's handbook. I didn't let them go outside the player's handbook.
That's smart.
Oh yeah, but
it's
even
still
then,
a lot. It's still a lot, but that's smart.
It was super overwhelming, and it took way too long to figure it out. I ended up doing their backgrounds. I ended up doing their starting equipment, all of that, and it was still a lot. So the second time I ran it, and I ended up giving them the little fortune tellers, the cootie catchers, where there were 4 choices, 4 races, and 4 classes that they could pick, and they had to use the cootie catchers to do it. And that was also a big hit, because we had to make them, and
do that. That's
they
a really, really
making
fun way to do it.
Yeah, it definitely is. It really helps to limit it. And I used words like to choose the words that they had to choose. I would do things like, spell, attack. What else did I use? I can't remember, but like they were all like, dice was one of them. Like all of the words that so they could figure out the letters or the movement.
Oh, yep.
That's what I'm doing.
They could move it enough. They could move it enough times to.
Yes. Yep. Also, I actually used Dungeon Mayhem.
Yeah, that was the last thing that I was going to bring up, actually.
Yeah. So while I divided my group of 12 for this last time. I divided them into groups of 6. 6 of them went off and played Dungeon Mayhem. So they learned how to play Dungeon Mayhem. And then I worked with the 6 to create their characters. And then the next day they switched. The cool thing about Dungeon Mayhem is it's very much D&D light. So they kind of got an idea of what to expect in a fun sort of way, even if it was subconsciously. So, like, they know that the Barbarian got to hit a lot more. Mm-hmm. So if Barbarian was a class that they were able to pick, they knew that they would be able to hit more. Yep. They knew that the Rogue was sneaky, and, sometimes would have the 1 dagger, 2 daggers, 3 daggers. They knew that the Cleric could heal people and could give health back. So yeah, overall, it's just, kids are so much fun to play with. They're just fun. Like, you can change anything you need to make it really great for them, and they're so grateful for it. They're learning how to interact with each other. They're learning how to compromise. They're learning how to critically think, and they're having a blast doing it. And that's what matters.
Awesome. Thank you again, Heather, for talking with us today or tonight.
Yeah, hopefully there's some good knowledge there. There's lots of resources for anyone out there that wants to try and do this with their students, whether it's after school or in their classrooms. I don't know. Am I allowed to say other websites? I don't know. There's definitely resources. If you look up RPGs in the classroom, D&D in the classroom, you can find lots of resources on Google. So.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just really quick to round out this episode, it's time for Quest Log. So Quest Log is where we talk about what's on our to-do lists. And we could even have a special Quest Log appearance by Heather as well. So Courtney, I see you just have continuations this week written down, so nothing new?
Yes. No,
Okay.
Unfortunately, nothing new. It's I'm still trying to get into the swing of things, and I finally got rid of the boot off of my ankle, so things aren't as painful anymore, and I can try and focus on other stuff. So that's unfortunately, I have not done anything near where I would want to have. So, but I'm gonna keep trying every week. I'm gonna keep trying, and that's half the battle.
Okay. I did not do any chapter 1 comics or item icons or anything last week. I did post the Tempest article to the Patreon.
Nice.
So that is up there for $2 and up patrons to go check that out for Tales of Jamora. So this coming week, I still have the Color Chapter 1 comic or Create an Item icon. I want to finalize the 8-Bit Adventures Plays logo, the new logo. So I have one that's basically done, but it looks like it might need some cleaning up to do and to get some feedback on it. And then finally, this is mostly done, but to finish a Khazdal soundset for Tales of Jamora in Sirenscape. So again, this is for our funsies, so this won't be made publicly available, which is good because there's a lot of music in there that I can't share legally. But we can. It
is for personal use.
We can use for our own personal uses as part of the license for using Sirenscape's soundset creator. That said, if and when we ever return, I do have a list of music that we are able to stream that we will basically be throwing in there. So transitioning from like standard fantasy fare to like more synthwave type stuff. So it'll be a little bit of a tonal shift for the players, but whatever. I don't care. So
a tonal shift? You mean that the fact that Courtney can actually hear it?
No promises. Because we all know how that works at the television station.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So, Heather, do you have anything that's on your geeky to-do list?
I mean, I do. I have my weekly D&D game tomorrow night. I do that every Thursday with some friends down in Maryland and Pennsylvania and South Carolina. And then I have a bi-weekly game that's been going on for over a year now. We're so excited. On Sunday, we'll play for 4 or 5 hours. And that's people from Oregon, Maryland, DC, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Maine, kind of all over. So I've got that. I joined the PS4 crew and got a PS4 recently. So I've been playing a lot of Fall Guys once again with friends from all over. So that's on the agenda, and I have some music writing that I'm hoping to continue working on. So
Nice.
yeah,
And
I'm
also
working on
perhaps for my own selfish reasons, a one shot to plan.
Yes, no, yes, I
Hint.
bring that book with me everywhere. So as soon as I'm done my class reading for the day, I can read that. So that book lives with me. So that will be happening at some point soon, because it's September and I said we'd do that in September. Maybe fingers crossed October. Well, we're gonna get that done.
I'm like, we have to wake up Green Day tomorrow, so
I know.
today.
I know. Yeah. No, we will definitely be playing 7th Sea at some point soon. So getting a poll out to our group for that. That is on my agenda.
Okay.
Nice.
I pinky promise. Virtual pinky promise.
Okay, pinky promise. Not that I have any stake in it at all.
No, not.
Which is a lie, but you know.
Bold-faced lie.
All right. So that I think is gonna wrap everything up for this week. So it's a little bit of a shorter episode, but again, we didn't have a whole lot of quick fire news.
Even though we added a bunch of things too.
Even though we added a bunch of things, it's still shorter than our usual list. So
yeah.
If you want to find more content from 8-Bit Adventures, be sure to check out 8-bitadventures.com. Over there you can find comics, artwork, podcast streams, and more. If you would like to help support that content, you can do so 3 ways. You can support this channel here on Twitch by subscribing, or if you have Amazon Prime, you can use your free... What do they call it? Do they still call it Twitch Prime subscription?
I think it's
Prime Gaming now?
Yeah, it's something weird like that. But basically, you get 1 free Twitch subscription per month. That must be manually renewed. Please consider supporting this channel. You can support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/8bitadventures and get access to things like early access to comics. You can get exclusive behind-the-scenes Tales of Jamora content and a discount on merchandise, which is the 3rd way. So at shop.8bitadventures.com, we have t-shirts, stickers, hats, some prints, and more. So be sure to check that out. Our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And Heather, are there any links or social media stuff or anything you would like to promote?
So if you're interested in getting some tabletop RPGs in your classroom, my suggestion would be to check out teachingwithdnd.com. It's a great resource with lots of information, lesson plans, and articles if you need to convince your administration why teaching with RPGs is a good idea.
Nice.
I posted that in the Twitch chat for those who are watching this later. So yeah, that's going to wrap things up, folks. Thank you for joining us. As always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.
Hey, everybody.